District Board of Fire Commissioners meeting to order. We're at 848 Airport Road here in Destin, Florida, August 14, 2018 at 5:30 p.m. This meeting is open to the public. And the first thing on the agenda, we'd like to do an employee recognition from the chief.
Yes, sir. As we started this program earlier this year, where we'd like to recognize those employees that accomplish all the goals that they need to in order to be able to become permanent full-time employees and make it off of probation. We have one tonight that has made all his marks, exceeded some of those, and has accomplished relief of probation as of 7 o'clock this morning. Am I right? Okay. So I'd like to recognize Eli, who happens to be sitting in the front. I think he sat in that seat a little over a year ago, same spot, when he answered a lot of questions to kind of get the job in the first place. But interesting the guys did that to you. Reminisce a little bit for a year ago. But Eli's excelled in the areas that we've asked him to with the swim requirement. He met that very early on. As soon as the hazmat class came up, he took the hazmat class, passed the test, he's certified hazmat tech, and he's working on the boating now. We just got to get him cleared and signed off on the boat, and as soon as rope classes come, we have that. So he's made his marks well before when they needed to be made. The only requirement he really had to fulfill within a year was the swim requirement, and he did it very early on. So we're very proud of Eli. He did an outstanding job. Matter of fact, I think a few months ago I tried to give this same coin to him, and after me he had to give it back because this just timed him off. But this time it's official, and he gets to keep it and to have with him all the time. This is a welcome to the family coin that he'll need to carry, as we've all said, with him at all times. If he doesn't have it, there's a price to be paid, and depending on how many are around is how much it will be. So make sure you don't, either you have this or your credit card, one or the other. So with no further ado, I'd like to congratulate Eli Parker. If you wouldn't mind standing up, Eli. Thank you. Y'all get it? Have you got another one over here?
Yep.
Oh, Dad got you. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Welcome to the family.
Congratulations, Eli. Good to have you.
Appreciate it. Outstanding. Thank you, Eli.
Thank you. And the spill make you sit down front.
And thank you as parents for attending.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the floor is now open for public comments. So anyone from the public, you have the floor. Seeing none, the floor is now closed to public comments. Review of the minutes, regular meeting July 10th, 2018.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of July 10th, 2018.
Second. Okay, we have a motion to approve the regular meeting July 10th, 2018, and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, take a vote. All in favor? Unanimous? 4. And also we'd like to make a note that Commissioner Buckingham is absent and is excused. Okay, the review of the financial report, July 31st, 2018.
July 31st marks the 10 months through our current fiscal year. 2 more months to go, and we will be finished and ready for a new budget before us. As far as assets go, we are at a point where we're going to, I expect by the beginning of September, to need to transfer some money from the day-to-day fund into the Trustmark checking account. As we get closer to the end of the fiscal year, we will have some larger expenditures coming, such as prepaid insurance for the upcoming year, paying out payroll, and we'll have to see what happens with the additional payment for the 175 fund. I do expect that, at the first week in September. Our accounts receivable show high at the end of the month. However, they have been reduced by $111,000. So our billings to the TDC and to the city are current. As far as payables, everything's in line, normal adjustments for the month. Once again, we have had a quiet month as far as expenditures, just normal personnel expenditures, approximately $3,000 in capital outlay. We have had a few problems with the vendors as far as capital monies go, getting work done. There's gonna be a few items that we're gonna need to roll over into the upcoming budget. We'll cover that later on in the meeting. But we will have some funds that are gonna roll over into unassigned funds that we'll need to use in the fiscal year 18-19. As far as this year goes, we're looking well to finish, not only with that rollover, but with some additional funds rolling over, because there are some expenses that we did not have. So if there's any specific questions on the financial report, I will answer those.
Catherine, you said the TDC and the city are current, but how much of the 270 receivables is TDC and city?
There's as of today, we've already received 111,000. So of that 270, that would make 240,000 from the TDC and 20,000 from the city.
Okay, so basically, we don't have receivables from any other source of significance.
Of significance, no, we do not.
I'll make a motion, we approve the financial report on July 31st, 2018.
For a second?
Got a motion to approve the financial reports for July 31st, 2018, and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, take a vote. All in favor? 4 unanimous. All right, old business. All right, Chief, let's discuss the West End District Station.
Yes, sir, as the board's aware, we attended the city council meeting last Monday, and the city council had on their agenda to receive a recommendation from the Parks and Rec Committee to move forward with the grant for Clement Taylor Park without the fire station. Their recommendation was to allow the fire station after they had received the grant fundings and the park was complete. Concern to us, for me, is that could put us behind by a year and a half to 2 years, depending on the progress and how long it takes to do the park. So we were there to express our concern and our continued interest in working cooperatively with the city council to locate that station at Clement Taylor Park. They did not move forward with approving that recommendation. So they withheld approving that recommendation. And we don't have, but the Harbor CRA and the Parks and Rec Committee have scheduled a meeting for the 20th, this upcoming Monday, prior to the city council meeting. I believe the direction was for them to discuss Clement Taylor Park, the grant, the fire station, and to hopefully come together on a mutual decision with them where they can recommend to the city council for the city council to make a decision. I will be there, of course, and would ask that the board, if they would like to attend, to be there so they can see and hear and witness the process and the discussions that those two committees might have prior to that meeting. I believe they're going to get together at 5:30 on Monday, and if that's different, I'll make sure that I notify each board member what time that's going to be so that you'll know. But I'll be there to express our continued interest in working together with the city to locate the station in Clement Taylor. I did provide them with a letter from the descendants of Clement Taylor Park, Robert, Tommy, and Lloyd, that expressed their feelings on and support for having the fire station at Clement Taylor Park. The letter received nods of approval from the council. They didn't really comment on it, but I think they received it well. I think that is favorable for us. And I would hope that, from what I can tell from some of the city council members' comments, that I think they want to work with us. I just think there's some roadblocks that are kind of being placed in front of us that we're going to have, that I'm working diligently to overcome. We've made phone calls to the interim, I've made a phone call and spoken with the interim city manager to express our thoughts and what our request truly is, so that he's hearing it directly from us and not from other sources telling him what we want. We can tell him so it's clear. He understands, has concerns, but I've addressed those and will continue to do so. So I think that's where we stand now. We'll see how this upcoming Monday goes.
I think at that meeting too, they're supposed to get some information from the state as well to find out if they're, that grant money is in jeopardy of losing if they make any alterations or changes or add us there. So I think that's what they're supposed to report back to the city council as well.
Yes, sir. We try. I know that there's been a couple of commissioners as well as myself made a couple of phone calls to a few people to see if we could get those answers. And the response that we're receiving is that they do not. Those that are associated with it, as far as the Triumph Fund and the Restore Act grant funds, the people we've spoken to, of course, it's not the official answer. What we've spoken to is they do not believe so. We're not. Where it would place it in jeopardy if there was a major, and we'd have to look at what the definition of that is, but a major change in what they've submitted and what we're requesting isn't. That's what I was trying to express to the interim city manager, as well as anyone else that I speak to that's associated with this, is that we're not asking for a major change. We're asking for them to move forward with their grant. Just cut out a corner of the park and say we're not going to remodel that corner. But everything else moves forward as you plan, and we're fine with that. Just don't remodel this part, which is probably an 1/8 to 1/16 of the park. That's all we're asking for, is not to remodel that. It's not to add the fire station to the grant, as some are putting out. It's not to, for them to help fund the fire station. We're not going to exceed the amount that's been requested, and that would jeopardize it if it went back and said, okay, it's $750, now we want $1.2 million. That's not it. Some people have tried to tie the Clement Taylor Park grant to the Royal Melvin Heritage Park grant, and if you go to the Restore Act website, you can see that those two things are separate line items. So they have $1.2 million for Royal Melvin, and they have $750 allocated for Clement Taylor. So they're separate. They're not tied together. So, well, if we lose this one, we're risking the other one. I think it's just some hysteria that's going along with it. I don't really understand really why, but there's a little of that gamesmanship, I think, going on, and that's why I wanted to make it clear what our request truly is. It's not, we're not asking them to add the fire station to the grant. Just cut out
We'll
that
actually
point.
be saving them money from the remodel that area, the bathrooms, adding it onto our station.
True.
I mean, so I think it's a win-win for everybody.
They could actually do more with the park if they cut out that section, and the money was going to be spent on that section, plus the money they were going to spend on the bathrooms. Now they can do other things. I even mentioned to the city manager, if you could probably put in a splash pad like you've done in the other part, you could do this part. There's things that you could do, add to what you want to do down there by us absorbing the bathrooms and you not having to remodel that section of the park, whether it was for parking or whatever it was. You won't have to worry about it, or even demolishing a bathroom. We'll demolish the bathroom as part of our building process of putting the station down there. So there's quite a bit of cost savings that we can provide them that can be spent. They can still spend $750, but do it and do more at the park outside of that one section. So I think it's a benefit. I think it's truly a win-win. I discussed with Commissioner Wagner. I had brought up the idea we could go down there and talk with the people in the neighborhood and get signatures from them supporting the fire station going down there. Might not be a bad idea, because that was brought up as well. I said, well, the people in that neighborhood. And I said, well, I don't think it's going to be a problem, especially if they ever needed our assistance. I'm sure they prefer for us to be seconds away as compared to minutes. I think it would be a benefit for them for us to be located close. And we'll put, and I've expressed it to, not directly, but indirectly to the Bay House, where I heard that they had a concern about sirens. I've expressed that I put out a policy, so we wouldn't turn our sirens on until we were a block away, so that way we wouldn't interfere if they happen to have something going on at the time that we took the call. There's not a lot of traffic on Calhoun that we're gonna need to clear with our sirens, so I feel pretty safe with that. And they're not gonna be up to a speed where it would be a risk to our firefighters or the community. So, you know, one thing I did stress to Lance is that communication is key. As long as we're talking, we can overcome just about anything. As you bring any concerns, we can address those. It's that important to us. Public safety is paramount, and it is just too important to not pursue this. So.
Exactly. That comment is right.
Oh, yes, sir, absolutely. Why they're looking to remodel a park, what a better time to do it?
Yeah, exactly.
It might be premature, but if they're worried about their $750 grant, and I don't mind paying for what we use, and maybe at the board's discussion, and maybe even us offering to cover that $750 if they do lose it, maybe we can cover that $750. And it'd be a lot cheaper to give them $750 and have a piece of property underwater. We can't buy property underwater for $750. But that's something we can discuss down the road too, is guaranteeing that if they do ever lose it, but I don't think we will, talking to Mel Ponder and stuff, we should have it. But in case they do, just to guarantee a spot underwater, which is paramount, especially for water safety and spill safety, and just keep the community in general, in the west end of town, just have it covered down there. We have to have something down there, especially with our zone 1 is one of the most active zones we have. Response time would cut by minutes if we had a station down there.
Exactly. And we are talking about putting the booms there, so,
Oh, we will.
I think we're all in wild agreement on this.
yeah.
It's that we need to talk to the people that aren't in agreement with us.
So hopefully we'll have that opportunity Monday. I think they'll open the floor
I hope
up
so.
for us
Yes,
to
sir.
speak, so. Okay, any other discussion? Tommy? All right. 2017-2018 budget funds for District 175 payment.
Yes, sir, I'll let Ms. Catherine pick up on this, but in general, because we are in August, we're going to need to, if we're going to make that payment in September before we get into our next board meeting, so that way they can be applied for this year. So we need to have that discussion of whether we're going to move forward or not with making the payment as we had budgeted for and as we had planned to do, so that we can pay down part of that liability. So we just needed to, because we had discussed holding, not eliminating, but it kind of discussed holding, making any future payments for the board, and then make a decision at a later date. So we just need to have that discussion around this.
That's correct. So at the point in which the board decided to hold the payment, it was due to the retirement board considering lowering their interest assumption rate. This board has had conversations saying, you know, whatever they do is on them. You know, you guys weren't going to direct the trustees. You know, that's their fiduciary responsibility. To inform this board, the retirement board did have a special actuarial analysis done on the effect, and it would cost approximately $36,000 per basis point reduction. Their next meeting is not until the end of this month. I'm not sure how they want to move forward with this, whether they're looking at 1 basis point, 2 basis points, it is unknown. We have built our upcoming budget with this not included in it. We have also built the upcoming budget with an assumption of the $1 million pay down, because that was what was approved by the commission. The commission never said we weren't doing it, so we had to proceed building the upcoming budget with that pay down, which affects our payment for the 175, our contribution rate for the upcoming year. So all of that has been taken into effect in the budget, which we'll review here in a little while, and we're at a breaking budget. We don't have excess monies, even with a reduction in the payment to the 175. There's a lot of capital expenditures that are coming in the upcoming year, and the asset fund continues to be underfunded. So there's not, you know, I mean, it helps to bring down the percentage which we have to put into the 175, but it's not a dramatic savings that we're coming up. So at this point, we need guidance on whether to put in the additional 275,000. We had already put in 250,000 up to the point where the commission asked us to hold those payments. If it's decided not to put that money in, our payment to the 175 for the next fiscal year will increase, and we will need to make an adjustment to the budget on the by the September 11th tentative meeting. That is our next meeting that we currently have scheduled. So we're looking for guidance on what to do with that.
So if we do nothing, it's gonna cost us more money than if we put it in and they decide to lower the assumption rate 5 points, we're gonna have to come up with more money anyways.
So what's the chatter now about how much they're thinking about lowering it? And there's some chatter talking about it?
It's unknown. They just asked for the study for 1 basis point. It's basically just a multiplier. They could do 2 basis points and just double the amount. And it would be a good estimate for them to use. So they've had a wide range of discussion. You know, they've discussed at some point they'd like to see the the rate down to 6.5%. There's no other districts in Florida that have it that low. I'm not sure, how, if they're ever going to drive that hard, but all of the trustees wanted to see the effect of that, and they do understand that, it's a good thing to have the assumption lower, to be closer to the values.
And they did perform a study when I requested initially, when they brought this idea up, getting it down to 7, and they wanted me to find out the board's feeling on it, and that's when and at that discussion, I go, well, if you really want the board to have any input at all, me to bring something to my commission, I need a study done. And then they turned down doing a study and said, just do the simple math on it. And that's when the commission came back and said, well, that's your judiciary responsibility, not ours. You make the decision, we don't. At least they did get a study done after that. And they did a study based upon 1 basis point to find what that effect would be. So as Catherine said, we don't know what their intent is. Truly, it is to lower it. Whether they do lower 1 basis point, none, or up to 5, which I think 7 was a presumed target for them, was 7 really. Early on in the conversations was that it would be great to have even lower than that, but a true baseline that they were looking at trying to achieve was a 7, I thought, or in the early on discussions. And that's when I think they made that initial move from 8 to 7.5, with the thought of eventually working it down to 7. And they did have discussions of doing it over a period of time. Instead of at one point, they looked at doing it over a 5-year period and at 1 basis point a year and trying to slowly work it down. So they've had quite a bit of conversation about direction. They haven't made a decision. So I can't tell you their feel, what I would anticipate, what direction they're going to go, but those are the conversations they have had.
At the meeting, they wanted, when they talked about lowering to 6.5, that even their expert was kind of shocked at that. He was shocked that not lowered that much. And the effect it would have on the department, especially when our millage is capped, so we can't ask for no more money. So if something happens, there's a downturn, we're in trouble. We're in trouble.
When is their next meeting, Catherine?
August 27th.
Okay, so it's before our September 11th meeting?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So we need to decide something then or now?
Now, before the end of the year.
Well,
At the
that's
meeting
September.
on September 11th, it is the tentative meeting. At that meeting, we typically like to have the final budget ready. We could schedule, you do have the option to schedule a special meeting before the September 11th. That way you could take a look at whatever they do on the 27th. You know, that would put it, you know, right around that Labor Day holiday. I mean, that could be done as well. And technically, you can change it after September 11th as well, but then you have to have another special meeting before you have your finals. So,
But in the budget, we have a plan for putting that money in.
Yes,
that's
sir.
correct.
Right.
Why don't we put the money in?
That's just the guys we're asking for from the board, because the board had asked us to put a hold, so we did, and we're just asking, do we not pay the payment, or do you want us to make the payment? Because we're just on the hold, we just need a little
I
direction.
see the payment now, payment later,
And the funds.
Correct.
and that's
and the-
when
That's
I
correct.
look at it.
If
It's budgeted.
If they see that we put that money in, to show good faith, maybe they'll hold off a year and say, that basically puts her down 1%, 1 or 2 points, doesn't it? Basically.
I would anticipate, based upon the 0.5% and the cost of that overall, I would anticipate, and this is very loose, no studies on it, that we would be,
6%.
yeah, the effect, so increasing our funded ratio from where we are now, from 64, probably would make us around 70%. So by finishing this payment out this year, we'd see that, and that's why that funded ratio, by having that funded ratio kicked up, then decreases our required amount going into next year for our pension. Again, that's why we need to know, so that way we can budget for what our pension is going to be next year.
You know, after all these years, after 18, almost 18 years here, we've always had to figure out our budget based on, we didn't know what we were going to get as far as money from the taxpayer. We didn't know what our health insurance rates were. We haven't finalized any kind of union negotiations through the years. I mean, we work with unknowns all the time. But with this meeting scheduled in, what, 2 more weeks, I'd really like to hear what they've got to say before I want to make a decision on it. I mean, you know, granted that this whole board has all the way supported raising our retirement deficit and getting it up.
Our funded ratio.
We've targeted that. That's the number one thing for this board right now. And we're going to do everything we possibly can. But I really don't want to make a decision, but at least we have some kind of idea of what our insurance is going to be, an idea of what kind of money we're going to get from the state, but with no idea unless somebody comes up and says, yeah, this is what we're doing.
I think we've lost some from the county tax that we were expecting to get, didn't we? Didn't we lose some?
$8,000.
We targeted that money for the pension. Right?
Yes.
So it's not going nowhere else. We targeted for the pension. We should just put it to the pension. You know, I understand Tommy's concerns, and it's my concern too, especially with the whole new pension board. If it was the old pension board, being at those meetings for the last several years, you kind of understood where they were going. I don't know where these new members are going. You know, they got the right idea by lowering the assumption, but with that said, it's also, there's a reaction to everything that happens. It might be a negative effect on the district.
And I think the last time we talked about this, we'll table it until they decide what they're going to do.
And that's what we did, yeah.
And that was, what, 2-3 months ago?
Ms. Cantor did bring up an idea. The board could make a decision tonight that to make the payment and short whatever decision the trust makes. So if the trust at their meeting makes a decision to lower 1 basis point, it's $34,000 or whatever that is, you could make that offset in our pension payment. Is that where you were going with that?
Not a bad idea.
So that way, if you made a decision tonight, we'll just adjust it based upon the decision they make. Now, again, they can make no decision. And then you'd have to have that alternative measured as well, so that if they said, well, we're not gonna make one just yet, we're gonna hold, we wanna do something, we wanna do some other, then the board can make a decision, well, we're gonna go ahead and make it, or not make it at all. But that is an idea, that you could offset the payment, make a decision, not offset the payment by whatever it is that they whatever decision they make.
And also, you know, it is important to keep in mind that this is not just a one-time payment. A reduction affects you year after year until that unfunded is completely paid off. So, saving just for 1 year may not necessarily be it.
But a pay down on it by $1 million benefits us for years.
Right.
So, because it lowers our payment not only for this year, but for years to come, because the funded ratio is up, the unfunded is down, so therefore our payment is less in the event that we get there. We can always pay more, but it reduces our payment, our minimum payment, it reduces that for us. So making that payment reduces it for us for
Just
years
paying
to
the
come.
principal now.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, right.
I'll take a flyer, I'll make a motion that we approve spending the money down that towards the pension, all amount.
I'll second.
We got a motion to approve and a motion to second. Any further discussion?
That leaves us the option to adjust that if we get some findings that we have difficulty living with in their next meeting. We can do it before September 11th.
You'd have to amend the motion.
Yes,
I'm just, I'm
Well,
not,
we can call a
I'm just
special
asking
meeting.
clarity.
Yeah.
yes, we don't have to make the payment immediately.
Okay.
As long as we make it by September 30th, but this certainly helps because of the budget which we have to present for the
Yeah.
upcoming year.
It clearly says what we intend to do.
Yes.
So you want to amend your motion?
Yeah, okay.
So you want to pay it all now,
Yeah.
regardless?
Well, we're
We
gonna,
can change
we're
our
gonna
mind.
do it, but with the faith in the retirement board, which we have no control over, we can't do anything there. Regardless of what we wanna do, it's what they say, and we gotta go by that.
So we have to react to that afterward, we'll react to it afterwards.
Yeah.
So that was my question. We still have one more bite at the apple, is what I'm saying.
Any further discussion? No. All in favor?
Thank you.
You're next.
Thank you.
Chief reports, beach safety update. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few items. We did have a very busy final weekend for the peak season. Final weekend of peak. We're still out there for another 2.5 months. So this Friday, we did start the accordion of shrinking with some of the chairs coming off the beach. On August the 2nd, which was a Thursday, I was supposed to have the director of the TVC ride along with us. And we mutually decided to cancel that because it was raining. As soon as it did stop raining, we rescued 40 people in 4 hours. Pretty simple lifeguard math. I think that's 1 every 6 minutes. On the following day, on the 3rd, we rescued 86 people. We were roughly trying to estimate how many people that was after the beach had closed. It's about 25 to 30. We couldn't really actually pinpoint a precise moment in time when that did happen. At one point, when we were making that decision to close it, we had 10 people on the county line. That was a human chain that collapsed. We were rescuing all 10 of them. And 6 or 7 people further down to the west. One interesting moment, we had a bystander actually pick up the lifeguard's radio that was rescuing the 10 and just say, "We need help in the ocean," which is a pretty vague statement. But it ended up being, for those 4 days, 156 people rescued, 5 transported, and we did have one drowning fatality. But the efforts made forth by the guys and the girls on the beach, just absolutely incredible. At one point, we had almost half of our staff in the water making rescues, which means if half your staff is making rescues, that half is no longer doing those preventative actions. And in my mind, we lost control. There's only so much that we could have done. So without the approval of the county or the sheriff, we closed it. And they soon followed and agreed that they would go ahead and have the sheriff's officers reinforce it. Other than that, looking at the statistics and how that reflects for the year so far, the only word I can kind of think of is boom. We haven't had bad weather days, so we have already eclipsed our record for attendance, persons rescued, you name it, 2.5 months left. And so as long as the weather stays good, we'll have set new records in just about every single category. Some other things, the junior lifeguard was very successful. We wrapped that up just a few weeks ago. While the numbers were down, the kids still had a great time. They enjoyed every aspect of it. And the crew just got back from nationals. We finished 5th in the small lifeguard division, but it was kind of uneventful. They had to cancel the last 5 events, of which we had 4 teams in the finals, and so you didn't get to run those actual races. So we kind of, we'd like to think we would have scored some points there. So they kind of just took the point standing as what it was and awarded those people. So kind of like maybe put an asterisk next to it kind of thing. But the crew, the demographic has always kind of been, when we started doing those things 5, 6, 7 years ago, going to those races, we had a lot of the foreign contingency or foreign lifeguards, H-2B visas. Those guys were kind of showing us how it's done. This year, of the 61 points we scored, I think only 4 or 5 were scored by the foreign contingency. So a lot of that talent, that effort being put forth is now some of our homegrown individuals. But other than that, there's a lot of information here on the statistics. If you have any questions on any of that stuff, I'd be more than happy to
I
answer.
just got one. If over half of your staff is in the water, what's the contingency for backup?
It just
Do we stage the fire trucks at some point with
Oh,
our
yeah,
members?
when it gets to that point, we get those calls, we respond down there on a per call basis. Joe could have half the staff, but we don't have that many fire trucks in the district to be able to back him up on every one of those calls. But when they are occurring, we are getting those calls and we are going down there. There are times when the beach safety guys are in the water doing rescues and we don't get the call because it isn't based upon Joe's team's evaluation of the situation, whether or not they feel the need is there for us to go to provide either backup or medical treatment in the event that that's what's going to be needed.
I mean, it's kind of like who's going to rescue the rescuer if they get in trouble.
Well, the system
You
is
know?
built, even though they have half in the water, the system is built where they overlap. And Joe can explain it, but if zone 1's going to water, 2's moving to back up zone 1, and then if 1 and 2 are in the water, 3's moving to back up, so all the zones are. And if
So they're
there's
collapsing on that area?
yeah, and if there's
Yeah.
a tower, if there's a guard that's in the tower that's going in, then that zone guard is responding to that area to back them up. So anytime a guard gets in the water, there's always somebody going to back them up. Now, unless he has all his people in the water. And that's part of the decision-making process that we go through, is it getting out of hand? That's why it was important that and this happened a couple of years ago, if I remember right, a couple of years ago, the language in our agreement changed that allowed us to be able to change to double red with or without anybody else's approval. Before, it said that it had to be the sheriff and the public safety director. All we had to do was request. We couldn't change anything. Now, and it changed a couple of years ago, and that was important. I remember Joe and I having that discussion. It's very important that we do that because we know our people, we know our beach, and we know our capabilities. And at such time that he has half his staff in there, it might be red flag. It could be actually, depending upon the client, all the other factors that are going to affect. It might not be red flag. It might not be red flag conditions. It could actually be yellow flag conditions. But there's just so much going on that it exceeds our capacity to be able to handle it. So we need to close it so that we can get a handle on the beach again. In that case, half his staff was in the water. He knew that it was starting to lose control of the beach. We're going double red, whether the SO enforces it or not. We're going to put the warning and prevention out there because we need the public to know that it's dangerous now, that if you do get in trouble, half our staff is in the water. So it might be a minute or two before we can get there. No, we have a built-in contingency just within the force that's on the beach, and then the other backup is those that are on the truck.
And then the next question is, with the beach rule changes, private beach and all that stuff, are we experiencing any problems about traversing that private property any more than what we've had in the past?
No, not any more than we've had. So, and on that particular day, we did have someone that wanted to challenge that. And I think he or she may have picked up the newspaper and the cell phone and kind of realized the severity of the situation. We kind of haven't heard back from them. So I think cooler heads may have prevailed. They might have just been upset in the moment. They didn't realize what was happening. But no, we haven't seen anything that, you know, from what it's been since I've been here for 14 years, I haven't seen anything much worse or better than that matter.
What you will see in the numbers is that on the primary page, we did that for Crab Island, coverage numbers there, but I also added an additional page on the backside so that you can kind of break it out. I know we've been asked the question before, what were some of the others that were there when we had the others? So I wanted to be able to provide that as well, so you can see some of those now. Not all of those would necessarily fall under the other category, but some of the interesting incidents that the fire rescue boat runs into. So, and you can see that down in the comments. So we do a lot out there, more than I think people truly understand what we're doing.
That's good information right there.
I do look at it.
Well, what's gonna be the kicker is, and our new contractor that I was reading with the GDC is that we are now obligated to cover Noriego Point and Crab Island. In the past, they wouldn't even claim that anything about Crab Island because they didn't want to give us any money to cover it.
That's correct.
But now they're, okay, so that's another added responsibility, not only to what we had before, now we've got that to cover. Fortunately, they have put more lifeguards out for a couple more for the Noriego Point stuff, but.
They increased our funding so we can provide this.
So we can do that, but, it's just gonna get worse.
Absolutely.
And if anything, that's a reinforcement for the firehouse on Calhoun, because the boat will be right there at Crab Island.
I agree 100%, and that's where, you know, as we've said many times, in our business, seconds count. So, you know, you put us minutes, 5 to 10 minutes away from being able to actually put the boat in the water, as compared to seconds. So it counts. It really does.
Can't put a price.
On someone's life. We do not.
Yeah, so time counts. All right, any other questions for Joe? All right, seeing none. Training report.
Yes, sir. You'll see that the firefighters were able to get in 21 hours in a variety of topics. When company surveys free fire plants, that's where they're getting out, looking at all the businesses, the tabletop scenarios, they kind of cover tactics on different structures. And you'll see down there, they did some target hazard training with the Holiday Inn units. And we're trying to rotate that in each month so that they can look at different target hazards and look at the tactics involved in the event that something occurs. So you'll see that. Pretty good month.
Any questions? Seeing none. Response change report. I'm sorry, inspection report.
Skipping over me again.
How do I do that?
Mr. Chairman, you have the report in front of you. Just a couple things to mention. Legacy Lifestyles, which is the assisted living there by the school. The plans are in, been reviewed, looking forward to them breaking ground shortly. So we're still waiting for our impact fee money coming in on that, and then they can start breaking ground.
Are they accessing off the beach or anything?
Both.
Both.
It's going to be through, all the way through. The other set of plans I just received is a TRC for the Henderson Beach storage facility. It's where they tore down the bank there by Walmart, and they're going to go back with a 3-story storage building there, somewhere around 79,000 square foot building. Other than that, you have my report in front of you.
Where's Legacy Lifestyles going?
Going between the elementary school and the church there, on that wooded lot, and it goes all the way from Benning to Beach.
Right.
Thanks, Matt. Response change report.
Yes, sir, you see on page 21, the times of the response. You'll see that EMS did increase, but that is just reflective of the up and downs that do occur throughout the year. You'll see in March they were at 51%, they were 52%, but yet The times are pretty close, the same thing in April, what was it, 21:28, and it's 21:30, so they're staying within that same area. I know that they've made some changes with the change out of their leadership, that they have made some changes as far as the ambulances, but their responses are still remaining the same. You'll see we're still in the 80s, which is good, seeing as how we're holding ourselves to a higher standard than what's common in EMS. We're holding ourselves to an 8 as compared to a 9 with the EMS. So again, that's not bad. We'd like to see an improvement, and we'll continue to strive to improve that. Then you'll see on page 22 the breakdown of responses by stations, where you see 71%, which is the norm for us in July, is out of station 9, and 29% is out of station 10. And then on page 23, you'll see the zone breakdown and where those responses were called for. You'll see, as we've been saying, the zone 1's been increasing. You'll see there that was a significant increase in July, where 90 calls were attributed to zone 1. And then you'll see the response changes that were made on page 24. We ran approximately 401 calls. We had the potential to run 465, difference being 64, and that's where the response change came in. So of those 64, you'll see that 52 of those were alpha calls, and 12 of them were to skilled nursing facilities. Those are the calls where they did not ask for assistance. Then you'll see also on page 25 that they did request our assistance on 11 alpha calls and 7 times to skilled nursing facilities, for a total of 18 responses where they did ask for our assistance on those calls where we asked them to do so. And then above that, you'll see the breakdown of the actual responses. 248 of those were medical, 153 were fire, with a breakdown of 62 to 38%. And then you'll see the types of medical calls that we ran, from the NPAs all the way down to childbirth and labor calls. Any questions if you have any?
No.
Overtime report.
Yes, sir, you'll see in July, we have roughly 43 hours of overtime. However, none of it was in the large chunks of 24-hour blocks, so you will not see that necessarily we have in the past. And I say not recent past, but in the past, where it's been for people calling out sick and putting us in that deficit. You'll see it in smaller blocks where most of that's going to be attributed to us ensuring that our guys are doing their paramedic assignments, whether it be in the classroom or in the clinical setting, we're ensuring that they get there. So 43 hours truly isn't bad at all for the month as well.
How's our students doing?
They're doing well. They're passing their classes, and they're getting the clinical hours in. Again, it's a condensed class, so there's a lot of hours that they're having to be gone to get everything in within that 10 months as compared to that 18-month period of time. So we get to see them occasionally. I mean, they'll come in and then they'll be gone, and then they'll come back in, and then they'll be gone again. So
Where are they doing their clinicals?
all over, Sacred Heart, Twin Cities, Fort Walton. It's all over this. It's all over the south end of the county as well as in Walton County.
Any other questions? Good. New business, amendment number 1 to the contract for the TDC.
Yes, I'll let Ms. Catherine pick that up.
So I guess approximately a month ago, the TDC approved the additional lifeguard for Noriega, for our current year for Noriega Point, as well as one for Holiday Isle, and the purchase of some capital equipment that was needed to do that. So this amendment has been reviewed by our council, their council, and it's basically to add those services and to increase the funding for us to provide those.
I have a question though, looking over it. Is this for the 2017-18 contract?
Yes, sir.
Not the 18-19 that's attached to
Correct.
it? Because I noticed that the numbers are all, I just want to make sure that's not for the upcoming year.
No, this is for our current contract, so it takes the $779,000 and that adds in the 30-some odd thousand additional cost for our current year to put those lifeguards and the capital equipment out.
If you'll remember when I brought this to the board, about me going to DFCD to get this funds, that because it wasn't on their agenda, they couldn't vote on it at the meeting that I went, and remember me telling them that if I'll get a general consensus of that group, that we would make the effort to go ahead and put the people out there based upon their general consensus, and then they could have their official vote at a later meeting. And they did, and that's what it's kind of come from that vote. Just for this current year to finish it out.
Yeah, so it's the difference of 816 and 17.
I'll make a motion to approve amendment number 1, contract number C18-2667-B.
Second. All right, we have a motion to approve in a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? 4-0. Unanimous? Okay. Interlocal agreement with Oakland County for beach services for fiscal year 2018-2019.
Yeah, so this is the contract, as DC has said, for the next fiscal year for us. This is the increase in the staffing continuation from what we increased it this year going into next year, as well as a couple of additional capital acquisition costs, which is significant in that we pushed for that two-person tower to be at Norita Point, and that is in this budget, in the upcoming budget, which is part of this agreement. We will, as they said, reevaluate whether or not 2 guards are needed on Norita Point. We're telling them that there will be, but they're not going to fund for that. They want us to evaluate it and get back to them. So the 2 guards in Norita Point are not as part of this agreement. They don't go in that specific, but they are adding enough money to maintain the guard staffing that we increased this current fiscal year. And DC has reviewed the agreement as well as Ms. Catherine.
That's why it's 856 instead of the 816.
So the time is still 9 to 8, or has that changed? Between Memorial and Labor? Oh, thank you, okay. And then 9 to 6, the remainder of the season, correct?
Make a motion to approve the level agreement with Oakland County Beach Services for 2018-19.
Second.
All right, got a motion to approve interlocal agreement with Oakland County for beach services fiscal 2018-2019 in a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, take a vote. All in favor? Unanimous, 4-0.
Thank you.
Thanks for working on that and getting that all done, Joe and Chief Captain. All right, budget workshop, third presentation.
Yes, sir. Sorry, Ms. Catherine carried this one forward. We've had a lot of discussion, but she knows the particulars of our discussion.
The budget before you has several changes than what you have previously seen, and I want to go ahead and highlight what those changes are. First, there was a reduction of $8,000 in our ad valorem taxes. That took us to what the trim process now officially says is our certified value versus what our preliminary assessment was. We have adjusted personnel services for the following areas. We've increased education allowance by approximately $40,000. This is something that we wanted to put in there due to what we've experienced with the paramedic program this year. in case there's anything that comes up in the future, to have the ability to negotiate educational training for the employees. There is an addition of a part-time medical director under this budget. That is something that our current budget held, but we were not able to, and it was approved in this current year, but we were not able to find the right individual who was able to take the position at that time. We do believe that this is something that we can proceed with moving into our next fiscal year. And then.
Is there a line item for that one?
No, it is included under just the general hourly wages with the rest of the staff.
Okay.
And then the last item is under uniforms. We were not able to complete our Class A uniforms this year. We're actually having problems with one of our vendors. And it's possible we might have to switch vendors if they're not able to service us. But because of that, we are gonna need to roll over $7,600 into the upcoming fiscal year, so that budget has been increased to account for that. Those were the changes in the personnel services. Moving down, we've adjusted supplies. We've actually decreased equipment under $1,000. We've found some items that we could save money on, and those are items that would cover things such as pagers, to mattresses, to appliances, small appliances that we have in the district. So I was able to find some items that we could save on. Under other, which is on, sorry, I'm not following the same guide. Other expenditures on page 53 is where we have the transfer to the asset fund. We did need to increase that by approximately $1,400, and this is to account for changes to the capital outlay that we have. So I'll roll right into capital outlays. We've made several changes to building improvements. First, we are removing the proposal to replace 11 concrete pads on the front side where the trucks roll out. We believe that we can get by with them for a few more years, and we really need the money in different areas. We do plan to proceed with replacing the one concrete pad on the visitor side. It's falling apart due to roots underneath and possible problems with pipes. So we do need to get that addressed. We would like to add the remodel of the front reception area for security purposes. We did actually have an incident this year where an individual who I guess charges are against, who's alleged to have murdered the Uber driver on Okaloosa Island, came into our department the next day with some letter trying to get funds from us. We found out who he was, and we're kind of taken back from him. We were taken back when he came in anyway. So we want to secure the front office to where it's just a reception area and a window to pass things through, and you have to be buzzed in to get in. You know, a lot of fire departments have that, police departments have that, so we're proposing the addition of that. With that, we're looking to remove the remodel of the kitchen here at Station 9. We needed to find some funds, and one of the reasons for removing that is we can get by a little longer, but Station 10's kitchen also needs to be done. So I think it's only fair to our employees, not to pick and choose which building, and they're both kind of at the same level with having problems with cabinets, having problems with floors, so we need to find maybe in the budget in the following year to address both of those. And then we have a rollover, so we're adding money for the Station 9 exhaust system here out in the bays. We've helped put out an RFP on that. We got a vendor. We've issued a purchase order. We have parts sitting in our bay, but we're still waiting on parts. So we're not optimistic that that project is going to be finished in this current fiscal year. And then lastly, under building improvements, we have an addition of funds, $27,000 to paint and caulk Station 10. This is a very large project due to the small area and the construction of the station and how high the station is. So we've gotten an estimate, we will have to go out for an RFP for it, but we've got an approximate price, so we have that added. Otherwise, as far as this.
Can I make a mention about the remodel of the entrance? You're talking about security for the entrance. I think this back door needs to be secured too.
Oh, no, it's all.
If you're talking about
Oh,
that.
we've got
Yes.
all that.
Okay.
We also have built into the budget under equipment under $1,000 and under building improvements to secure
All
doors,
the doors.
Okay.
for security cameras, to put security
Right.
features into both stations.
What-
But this is the station that receives the public for daily business. Station 10 is secured already. We do have to, use codes to get into building. But we do have it in the current budget for all of our doors and systems, security systems.
I'm sorry for the.
No, that's a good question, because we didn't highlight it, but we do have. The thought would be, it's not just that remodel, we're securing the stations.
Okay.
All right, and then the last two items would be beach safety. So the beach safety budget was adjusted for those additional personnel that the TDC approved, as well as the tower, and some smaller capital outlays. And then the junior lifeguard program was added. We previously did not have it in budgets because we needed to reevaluate how we are running that program. While the program was a success, the children excelled. Unfortunately, registration was lower than what we had anticipated. So with that, instead of one program that runs 8 weeks, we are proposing 2 sessions which run 3 weeks each. And really restructuring this, instead of a summer program, to get back in line with how the program started, of a lifeguarding training. Let's train these individuals who want to step into jobs after they're finished with us, and to really focus on that. So eliminating some field trips and really making it a more core training program. So that whole program has been added, as well as the income to offset that. In summary, we've added and adjusted all of these items with the effect of still having an underfunded asset fund of approximately 7% underfunded. We are looking to use unassigned funds of $93,000. Now that is all of the funds that were budgeted for our current year, which we could not finish. So the money is already there in ad valorem taxes this year. We're just going to utilize them in the upcoming year. This budget includes adding 3 full-time firefighters to the shift. It includes adding the part-time medical director. It includes the various capital outlays that we've indicated, as well as the replacement of our oldest engine. So there's a big outlay for the engine. Those are the large items in this year. Otherwise, our operating expenditures, is the smaller part of our budget. So they're in line with how we normally budget them, based off of historical use and the last 12 months analysis. We do have upcoming negotiations of the full contract next year, so that's been built in case there's legal expenditures needed for that. So I think that really addresses all of the large items of our budget. If there's any questions, anything that you'd like to see added, removed, changed, that we look into prior to our tentative meeting on September 11th, now would be the time to let us know.
The question on the impact of adding 3 full-time firefighters, where does that get us back relative to where we were before we went over the cliff and started laying off people? We're close?
We're very close.
It seems like we're about there.
Oh, yes, sir. I think these 3, if we could do 6, we'd be there. So we're within 3, really. based upon what the future holds, we know there's some things that are in the future that we know is gonna occur, or pretty confident is gonna occur with the homestead exemption passing and that kind of stuff. Even though it's gonna be a vote, we anticipate it'll pass, maybe that's gonna have an effect. So I would hope, depending upon those effects, that within the next couple of years, we could be at where we were with staffing, as far as on the trucks. Of course, as I told the board, I'll hold back on my administrative staff and let us absorb whatever we need to absorb to ensure that we put the firefighters on the trucks first. And then we'll start to fill in other positions that they need.
Their negotiations, they don't start again until next year, so this would affect next
That's
year.
That,
So the following year would be for raises and stuff like that.
that's correct. The impact of the negotiations next year will not have an effect until 1920.
We could have legal costs, is what you're talking about.
It's just legal.
Yeah.
Right, it'd be 1920. And with that said, I did forward the board a letter from President Money stating that they respectfully decline to, not declining because we're not asking them, but they're not, they want us to know they're not going to request open negotiations this year for the reopening of wages, which very appreciative.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Any questions?
Good.
I do have one thing to bring up. I was at the Chamber of Commerce breakfast, and they were talking about the trees on the coast, trees of Destin and what have you. They're going to be planting oak trees along the airport road here in honor of the 11 Marines that died.
Wow, okay.
And it was asked of me to see if we could actually have the fire trucks at that ceremony. It'd be
Absolutely.
at the end of this year or the first of next year, sometime, when they give me a date, or give us a date. We'd like the fire trucks being there with the flag, like we hang and all that kind of stuff. Up and down
In the
Airport
median?
Road, except for the corner,
median?
In the median, yeah.
Put them on the curb, knock them down.
Yeah. So it's supposed to be some oak trees and maybe some other trees, but they've asked us to be a part of it. So
We'd love to participate. I know the board would, and we're a little different than some other departments. We don't have two lighters. We can support our own flag holding by ourselves without having to ask for anyone's assistance with that, which is great.
Chief, one more thing, Chief, you said about the uniforms, find a different vendor, are we gonna be able to keep the same uniform that match everybody else's that we have now consistently?
We're going to try our best, and we're still trying to work out our differences with our current vendor. We're going to do everything that we can to keep the same.
hopefully we'll have them by that ceremony. That would be nice if they were interested.
I'd love to finish them out this year, but we have, again, we have some concerns with this vendor.
Those are Class A's we're talking about, right?
Yes.
We
Yeah,
got,
full dress.
we got, like we've said, I'm already suited up, and now I'm getting 20% left, and if they don't match, it's.
Oh, no, with the colors, absolutely, sure.
We're going to do everything we can to make sure that they do, because we're aware of that.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Okay, tentative budget hearing meeting was scheduled for September 11, 2018 at 5:01 p.m. We have our regular meeting scheduled shortly after on September 11th at 5:30 p.m. So, anything else, Commissioners? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.